I just got back from Con of Heroes 2023. I am exhausted, but I am excited to talk about it. Hello and welcome to Nelson All Over Cards. Today we're going to do kind of a recap video and just talk about what all happened at Con of Heroes in 2023. Con of Heroes is a Marvel Champions convention hosted by the MCM, or the Marvel Champions Monthly Crew, right outside of Minneapolis in Roseville, Minnesota. So over 100 people gathered to play Marvel Champions for 4 days. So it was structured from Friday to Sunday. However, there were a lot of people there playing on Thursday. There were a ton of events. We're going to walk through some of the events because they were really cool. Got to play with so many wonderful people. Had just so much fun running into people from the community, getting to play with so many of you all. And it was a blast. I had absolutely so much fun with everything. It was great because most of the games that I got to play were like 4 players, and I don't get to play a ton of 4-player games, and so that was really exciting to dive in and see kind of the synergies of how different heroes could interact, all of that good stuff. Really fun experience. This is the second year of the Con of Heroes, and so last year when I went, I did not have like any multiplayer experience whatsoever. And so I built a lot of decks that were very solo focused. And this year I had kind of a better understanding of how to approach a multiplayer setting. And I was able to build some multiplayer decks, which allowed me to run some kind of fun combos that I don't normally get to play, because some of these decks didn't have to care about threat, and you could just kind of go all in with Drax aggression and just have a ton of fun. But so just kind of a quick overview. I ran 8 decks, so I was planning on running 4, but Friday night I decided that I wanted to run some more decks. I deconstructed those 4 and built 4 new ones. The 8 decks that I ran were Quicksilver Aggression, Drax Aggression, which was a lot of damage, that was a lot of fun, Spider-Ham Justice, Spectrum Justice, Cyclops Leadership, that was the Maria Hill Recursion deck, Star-Lord Leadership, there's the Iron Man Voltron Cheese deck, where you play all the upgrades on Iron Man and then they draw you cards from Guardians of the Galaxy. I played a Miss Marvel Protection and then a Gambit Protection deck. So I got a lot of variety in both aspects and heroes, and it was so much fun to play just a wide variety of games, heroes, aspects, and with people. Anyways, okay, so let's talk about some of kind of the structure of the con. So it's a convention where it's a fan-hosted convention in Game Center, which is right across the parking lot from the Asmodee FFG headquarters, and it's held from Friday to Sunday. And there are structured events on Fridays, Saturdays, and then kind of a pseudo-structured event on Sunday. But outside of that, there was a ton of open gaming. You could run up, and I was trying to go around and sit down with as many people as I possibly could and play with everybody. So I was cold calling tables. I was approaching tables randomly, asking if I could jump in on one of their games, and everyone was nice enough to say yes, and so I appreciated that. But the structured events, and then once Game Center closed at 10, people were going back to the hotel and playing on couches and tables, and there was so much Marvel Champions being played, and it was just amazing to be with the community. The custom scenarios, there were a lot of custom scenarios that the team that put on the convention created, and so I'm going to be talking about some of those. All of those files, they handed out kind of like a pack of cards when you showed up, and these were kind of used throughout the weekend as different modular sets. Some of the different campaign cards, these are like challenge cards that you got to use. And so those are all available on the not the Hall of Heroes, the Con of Heroes website. I'm going to put a link down below, so if you want to print and play those custom scenarios yourself, you can. Okay, so we officially kicked off on Friday with a Magneto game where each group played Magneto. So yeah, Magneto's a tough one. But the cool twist here is because we had, I don't even know, probably 30 to 40 games going on at one time. Whenever you defeated one of those side schemes that Magneto has, like the boarding party, orbital decay, all of those good stuff, you got to look to a table to your left or to your right. If you defeated orbital decay, you would tell one of them to remove a magnet counter from their scheme. And so there was some fun kind of interactions where you're like, okay, I think this is gonna be really tough. We have two, and then your neighbors would say, hey, take one of those magnet counters off, and you're just like, yes, perfect. And then the other gimmick, or not gimmick, but shtick for this one is that the Brotherhood minions would come out. We took the Brotherhood modular set and set that aside, and then they would come on the mic every X amount of minutes and say, okay, put Blob, or deal Blob face down to the first player, and then you had to deal with that. And so it was just a conglomeration of just, good things happening and bad things all happening all at the same time. And Magneto, I enjoyed Magneto. I know there are some people that do not, but I thought that was a really good way to start, get everyone kind of running into the game, getting an idea of how the multiverse, or how, that's what they were calling kind of like the interactions between the multiple tables, was going to play out. And then we moved into the multiverse scenario. So I think this was probably my favorite scenario. So the multiverse scenario, it was like a custom mod set / rule set where you got to, let me see if I can just find the cards, where you got to play with, this permanent side scheme, and you got to play whatever villain you wanted. Now they suggested Claw. We had just played Claw the night before, and so we went with Project Wide Awake, which was fun. But when you played with this Multiverse Meltdown modular set, you had this Multiverse Meltdown permanent side scheme where it started on, it started on this side where you had to put Kang engaged with the first player, who's a 1/2 villainous 4 health per player minion, so he's pretty beefy. You had to take him out. And then once you thwarted down the side scheme, you would flip over to the stable incursion, and then you would get America Chavez as an ally, who's a 2/2/4, and then she does not count towards your ally limit, so she's really nice, but this has a crisis. And so whenever you thwart this down, it flips back over, bringing Kanga back into play. And so there was just a lot of really cool interactions with with this mod set. I thought that this one did a phenomenal job, especially because of the new keyword that they put on a lot of these cards, which was the multiverse. So this card specifically was called Ebb and Flow of Time. It said, when revealed, place an acceleration token on the main scheme. Each player draws a card. Multiverse, so this is when you would go to another table somewhere in the con and say remove 1 acceleration token from the main scheme. And so you would get people like standing up and yelling, hey, does anyone need to remove an acceleration token? Or you would run over to a table that had just helped you remove an acceleration token. You're like, hey, take that acceleration token off. And so there's a lot of really cool synergies inside the game that you were playing, but also people were getting up and running all around the entire con to help. Hey, first player, draw 2 cards. Hey, you search for an ally, and just stuff like that. It was, I think, my favorite event of the con. All the other events were fantastic, but this one was unlike anything I'd really ever played in Marvel Champions. It was the first epic multiplayer event that Marvel Champions, I think, has had. There may have been others out there. It's the first one that I was aware of, at least, and it was a good time. I did cheese this a little bit, and so we flipped over to the stable incursion, which has that crisis icon, meaning you cannot take threat off of the main scheme. But I was running a Spider-Ham Justice deck at the time, and I had the Crisis Averted, and so I was able to get around that. And so we took out Kang, and then we never had to bring him back in because I was lucky enough to have put the Crisis Averted in my deck. And so really, really cool kind of stuff going on. I had a lot of fun with this one, and it was just like a really cool way to play with, it felt like, everybody in the room. We ended up after that playing just kind of open play. We would go down, I don't even remember all the games I played. I tried to track them all. I ended up not doing that. I probably played 20 plus games of Marvel Champions over the weekend. It was a really good time. But we had open play. We went back to the hotel. We were playing on couches, and it was crazy. It was chaotic. But that took us to Saturday. Saturday was kind of the big day for the con. The crew had constructed a 3-game custom campaign that was brutal. It was a lot of fun. It was tough though. It was tough. Let me see if I can find the cards for the campaign. Yeah, so they printed out these types of cards, which has special setup rules, special villains, and then just different rules to play through the campaign. It started out with Crossbones with the Western set from Mojo Mania, and oh my goodness, Crossbones with the Western set. The Western has that I can't even think anymore. I'm so tired. It has the environment. There we go. That's the name of the type of card, where every instance of damage is increased by 1, and then Crossbones with his machine gun just wrecks you with that, and so you're flipping over and you're just taking so much damage. We ended up squeaking by with a game 1 win on that one, which took us into Master Mold. But the special rule here is that all minions were considered a sentinel minion, which means that they all had the guard. They all had guard, and then we were playing with, I don't even remember the one. I think it's sci-fi, where all the minions get toughness, and so that one was a slog because Master Mold would bring out a minion every single time you rolled down, or every single time you schemed, I guess, and then you would have to figure out how to get through those minions, and we ended up losing that one. We reconstructed our decks with a couple of decks that did not want to flip down to Alter Ego as frequently, so we're not, flooding ourselves with minions as often, and we got another win, or we got a win on game 2, and then we went to game 3, which was against Mojo. Throughout the entire campaign, we had Mojo on our side. Let me see if I can find that ally card. Cards are everywhere now, but oh yeah, here it is. We had like Mojo on our side, who when he attacked, he placed a counter, and then whenever that minion was destroyed, or that enemy was destroyed, you got to heal all damage from Mojo and then draw a card. And so Mojo was hanging out, and then he turned on us right there at the end, and we got to fight Mojo. The coolest setup, I think, of any of these games was where you got to place up to 3 additional threat on your hero at the start of the game to draw that many cards. And so playing in a 4-player Mojo game, you threat out at 100 threat, and we started with like 60 something on the main scheme. No, it was about 50, but it was a fun, like, managing. Okay, we can't get too high on threats. I pulled like I'm gonna die because I was playing Star-Lord. I had like 4 cards in front of me. I ended up dying, so we got to discard all those cards, and then we went for the win right there at the end. It was just a good time. Really cool scenarios. The Master Mold one was brutal. Oh my goodness. But Mojo, after that, was kind of, it felt nice to just kind of beat up on Mojo a lot. So yeah, that one was a ton of fun. And then that was not the last event for Saturday. We ended up playing one more event, which was the Sandman, which was a scenario where you played Sandman with any mod set, but they were coming around and telling sand puns, and if you reacted, either groaned or laughed at any of these sand puns, then you got to place sand counters on your city streets. And so I couldn't help myself. I laughed, and we ended up with 5 sand counters from the laugh on the city streets, which changed the game pretty significantly. But I was able to sit down with a group that was playing a really cool combo of 3 different champions, and they were recurring, or all playing Go for champions, and so they were all safe, and I didn't have a champion at the table, and so I was playing Spectrum at the time, and so the Ironheart player was nice enough to block with their Brawn, and then Brawn was then exhausted, which could then generate a resource for that player, but also he was not taking any damage. So it all worked out. I was safe. We ended up crushing Sandman. It was a lot of fun. It was a really good game. Then we ended up getting late night pizza, played very, very late into Sunday morning for Marvel Champions at the hotel. We found like this tiny little table that we were all kind of crowding around and playing on, but that was good. That led us to Sunday. Sunday morning, I got a game of Lord of the Rings in, and so we played a 3-player Lord of the Rings, The Three Trials, which is the scenario that I just struggled pretty significantly with on the progression play, and so it was fun to see that in a multiplayer setting and how that worked out, and was just a significantly more fun and balanced scenario for multiplayer. And then I set up a camera. I was doing like these can you guess the card in 45-second shorts, and so I just posted the first one yesterday, and so that's out. Steve, you can see if he can guess nowhere in 45 seconds, only using yes or no questions. Caleb Grace, one of the designers for Marvel Champions, showed up. I got to play a game with him, and so that was a lot of fun. It was just a really excellent community event, and it was really fun to play and just kind of have that open play time so that people could come up. I got to play a couple of skirmish games with some people and just you know, have a good time. So that's kind of what happened throughout the Con of Heroes. I had everyone who played with me sign my playmat. Let's see if I can, you know what, I'm not gonna hold this up. I'm gonna just like kind of have some B-roll of it, but it was really cool to have kind of the memory of everyone who played with me sign the mat, and so I can kind of look back at this and have a good time. But thank you anyone who hung out or played with me. I appreciated it so much. It was so much fun. If I didn't get to play with somebody, hopefully I'll get to play with y'all next year, because I am definitely going back. It was a blast. I cannot wait for next year. I hope to see you all there. But yeah, that was Con of Heroes 2023. I am gonna edit this video and probably take a nap. That sounds pretty good. But it was a great time. I will see you all later. Hope you have a good one. Peace.